So now it's arranged for him to make a live appearance, and he's going to be on the Mike and Bernie Winters show. And Tommy Steele's Steelmen will back him, you see, because there aren't any bruisers. Whatever it says on the record, there are no bruisers at this time. So anyway, and that, that's on Tommy's authority, and also Barry Mason, who sadly we lost recently. It's not just me saying the word, Benny. That is exactly.
No, well, it was quite a common thing to happen. I mean, even on Move It. I mean, the Shadows, as they later became, didn't perform on Move It with Cliff, did they?
No. Yeah. And of course they'd been the Drifters before there were the Shadows. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so so Barry takes him because, although this isn't what Barry wants to be a songwriter, and he actually wants to be a singer-songwriter. He wants to perform. So it isn't really, he just fallen into this business of looking after things for Tommy. So anyway, so they go, and they're in the wings, and Bernie Winters is saying, "Ladies and gentlemen," Tommy Bruce in that funny voice that he had, and Tommy can't move, he's frozen to the spot, and he's actually physically sick because all this audience is screaming and shouting and applauding at the sound of his name. And he's never even, some people might have sung in a pub these days to a piano or a karaoke, but not Tommy, you see, so it's all going on. Anyway, it's really starting to cause trouble. And Barry said, "Look, Tommy, we're in trouble here. Your career is over now." He said, "You've got to get on that stage." So he got one of the guys to bring him a microphone. He put it in Tommy's hand, and that started what Tommy did all his career. He said, "Now, Tom, just hold the microphone and say, 'Hello, doll,' just like you do on the record, and walk out." And as I say, he'd been physically sick. He'd actually been sick in the wings,
Yeah.
So he's feeling very pale, very weak, and he says, "Hello, doll.
Yeah.
This is Big Tom talking to you," and goes out onto the stage with a push from Barry. He gets out there, and he told me to the end of his life, "I have no idea, Dave. I don't think I sang. I certainly have no recollection of singing. I can hear the band playing. I can hear the girls in the audience screaming. I can hear everybody going wild, but I don't actually think I sang." And so that was it. He was on the road then. The show was on the road. Yeah. He would always do that right to the very end of his career, "Hello, doll, this is Big Tom talking to you." Yeah. And out he'd come onto the stage. And he's immense. He is Big Tom. He becomes that character. 5'11" tall. And people who've seen him have said to me, "Oh, Tommy was a big man, wasn't he?" And I said, "Well, he wasn't that big, I said, but he gave that impression. He filled the stage, So anyway, he was doing really well, and of course, Stars and Garters came along. That was Dorothy Shadwell. She saw him on a late night program and said that I want him. There was no Kathy Kirby, no Vince Hill, but that she knew straight away that for a series that was about a London pub, he was the man for the job.
But were you a Tommy Bruce fan at the time?
Very much so. Very much so. Bought Ain't the Misbehavin'. And although I'd left school at 14 and I had a bed sitting room, I used to go and see my stepmother. I think it was Wednesday nights. I'm sure it was on Wednesday nights, but it's a long time ago. And I used to go around to see her because my father worked long hours. And funny enough, I'd take a bottle of the Jersey milk with the gold top. You might be too young to remember
I do remember them. I do remember them, yeah.
But I would take that and we'd have coffee with milk, and we'd watch Stars and Garters. And she loved Tommy Bruce. She thought Cliff Richard was Greasy Joe. She didn't like him at all. All that she didn't like that at all. But Tommy Bruce, she thought, was lovely. She liked the songs he sang and everything, and she looked forward to this. And that was Tommy throughout his career. He appealed to all generations. And such mistakes were made because he was signed by Norrie to the Foster's agency. And a guy called Hyman Zal was put in place to be Tommy's manager.
Hmm.
Now, I could never quite understand what happened because I didn't know when we talked about it that I'd be writing a book, and it didn't seem important to me at the time. But Hyman Zal was the person who was contacted about Stars and Garters, and he negotiated the contract for that. When Tommy was doing variety shows, again through Hyman Zal. When he left Hyman Zal and Foster's, I don't know why. All I do know is that when he came out of Stars and Garters in 64, he came out to nothing. He hadn't got any gigs, he hadn't got any management, and he hadn't, got any way to promote himself. And Norrie and Columbia weren't making records with him past a certain point, and so by the time I met him in the early 70s, he was singing in pubs for £50 a night. That should never have been allowed to happen. It should never have happened. But the thing was, Tommy Bruce was that barrow boy. He couldn't. There's an interview on Saturday Club, and Gay Byrne happened to be doing Saturday Club that time, and he says, well, Tommy, everything's going well, and you've got this contract. How much was it for? £15,000. Wonderful. You'll need a manager, Tommy. And Tommy said, no, I don't need a manager. And he said, well, your manager will need a manager. He said, no, we don't need a manager. Don't need anybody. And I said to Tommy on many occasions, if there was one person who really needed a manager, it was Tommy Bruce. Because you could say for a maximum of 8 years, he was one of the biggest things around. You couldn't say it was ever going to be like Cliff Richard, but somebody should have been putting him through the out of rock and roll and into more general entertainment. Because when he went into cabaret and he was singing Sweet Lorraine and Ramblin' Rose, he was extremely successful. He had a natural humor, and the delivery of his songs, the timing of phrasing was brilliant. But somehow it got missed. I think there were just so many talented boys. I mean, Dickie Pride was one. Wonderful singer, wonderful entertainer, not just a rock and roller. But again, Tommy wasn't just a rock and roller. These lads came along, Dave Sampson, great voice. They didn't have any way to promote themselves. And if they were neglected, the careers waned.
Now, can you tell me a bit about when you came to meet him yourself? Because you obviously met him in the early 70s, didn't you?
Yes. Being Tommy Bruce fans and 60s music in general fans, my wife Margaret and I decided to go to a show. Now, I think it was Fagan's in Manchester, but again, I'm going back to the 70s. So, it's a long time ago, and a lot of things have happened, and I've been in a lot of venues since.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was either Fagan's or the Talk of the North. But wherever it was a great night, and Jess Conrad was on, and Screaming Lord Sutch, and Wee Willie Harris, and of course Tommy Bruce. And it was a fabulous show. We thoroughly enjoyed it. And a guy called Chris Black, not the one who was in the Searchers, but the one who married his own guitar and used to set fire to his guitar on stage, things like that. And he'd be completely politically incorrect these days because he used to throw a guitar-playing dwarf into the audience. Chris was a complete wild man. He played with Brian Poole for a long time after Brian had left the Tremolo.
Yeah.
And anyway, a really good pal of ours. But anyway, so I was talking to Chris afterwards, and saying what a great show it was. I didn't know him at that time. We became good friends. And he was saying, yeah, the show should go into the West End, it's really fabulous. I've had this wonderful conversation, and Margaret and I wander out onto the car park, and all the punters have gone. But Tommy Bruce is walking up and down, you see, mumbling to himself. So we just thought, As we were walking to our car, we said, "Night, Tommy. Great show. Thanks very much," sort of thing. And in his Cockney accent again, he says, "It might be a good night for you," he says, "but it's not a very good night for me." He said, "I've locked myself out of the car." And he'd done what we all did in those days, pushed the button down, lifted the thing, and then the keys were still in the ignition. So anyway, so we chatted for a few minutes, and while we're chatting, Jess Conrad came out again, became another and still is great friend, but we didn't know him then. And he shouts, "Good night, Tom," and gets in his car and drives off. And We Will came out, same thing again, "Good night, Tom," and drives off. And then Screaming came out, and so it went on. All these people came out and shouted good night, and Tom's left on the car park, you see. So he said, "I'm supposed to be doing a double tonight." So he said, "I'm supposed to be down in Leicester at a supper club doing a cabaret. I wouldn't go on till 1 o'clock, you see, but as used to be in the early 70s, that was a norm, So anyway, so I thought, well, he's driving a Ford Escort, I'm driving a Ford Escort, Ford keys fit any car. I'll try and help you with my key. Of course, maybe I didn't hold my mouth in the right place, but it didn't open. So that has failed. So then I said, "Well, this is silly." So I said, "What have you done about it?" He said, "I phoned the AA. They come and get me into it," which they used to be able to do in those days, but it's not allowed now. But they could get you into your car, you see. So I said, "Oh, well, how about this then?" I said, "I'm losing nothing. You leave us here with a note for the AA. Take my car, go and do your gig. Give me a ring tomorrow, because I'll give you my phone number, and we can change cars, and everything will be fine." So he said, "Oh, will you do that?" So I said, "Oh, I'm not losing anything, am I?" I said, "They'll come and let me into your car. I'll take it home and see you tomorrow sometime." So I said, "Oh, it's very good." So yeah, just as he was driving off the car park, the AA arrived. So naturally, he pulled up. They got him into his car, and off he went. Margaret and I got into our car. By now, we're the absolute last people. Even the AA got off the car park before we did. So we drive home, and what a lovely man, Not just a good entertainer, what a lovely man, and probably never see him again. But well, we would see him as an entertainer, but not see him.
Yeah.
Well, we'd speak
and you'd met one of your pop heroes, so you were probably ecstatic. Yeah.
Fabulous. So anyway, the following week, we knew Tommy Bruce was on, so we said, "We'll go and see Tommy again." It was just Tommy with a band that night, you see. So anyway, I was upstairs, and of course, in those days, you didn't have phone extensions and things like that. It's just the one phone. So Margaret answered the phone, and the voice said, "Hello, Margaret, it's Dave there." So she said, "Yes." She said, "Who is it?" And he said, "It's Tommy." So she said, "Tommy who?" So he said, "Tommy Bruce." He said. So she comes running up the stairs to me, you see, because I was just putting my tie on, because I always wore a tie in those days. And she said, "Tommy Bruce is on the phone. What does he want?" So I said, "Got no idea, Margaret, So anyway, so I came downstairs, got on the phone. "Hello, Tom. Hello, Dave." He said, "Do you know where I'm appearing tonight?" So I said, "Yes, I do." As it goes, I said, I know where you're appearing. You're appearing in Blackrod, which is a place near on the outskirts of Manchester, Northern England type place. So he said, "Oh, good," he said, "because I'm lost." So I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "The band was supposed to pick me up. They haven't picked me up. I've got to make my own way there, and I don't know where I'm going." I said, "Okay, tell me where you are, and I'll try and sort of direct you from where you are to Blackrod," you see. So he said, he started laughing. He said, "There's a pub called the Bluebell, which is round the corner from your house." Because I've given him my phone number and my address, you see. So changing cars. He says, "I'm speaking on the bar phone," because there was no mobile phones, one thing and another. So he said, speaking on the bar phone, he said, and what I'd like is if you and Margaret would come out with me to the show, and afterwards I'll take you out to dinner to say thank you for what you did. I said, but we didn't do anything. He said, no, but you were willing to do something, and that was more than our so-called friends Jess Conrad and Screaming and all the rest were prepared to do. So that was it.